Good times.
Mhm.
Well, technically pushes glasses up my nose. Argyle was in 17. I was only mentioned in 17.
The collective NPCs existed in those episodes.
Oh, okay. Clarissa as a subject existed then, as a
Mhm.
concept, sprung into being. Who I am? Oh, okay, okay. Um, well, Clarissa is this just this little power battery of optimism, of a love of life, a love of nature, a love of people, uh, great curiosity burning in her chest. She's a satyr, uh, grew up in a druidic combine, I think a few hours away from Haviltur. And from some secret backstory stuff that I don't think I want to mention until it's like brought up into play. She uh, she ended up being a student of the Ludmire Sanctum, is it? Under Wojtek, where she met this cat, this the Dolborg cat. Yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge to role play Clarissa, to be always that high energy, always want to butt into conversations and be curious and make her voice heard. And she's so darn quick in the way that she speaks. So I really need to be on my toes all the time, and in the same time balance my character's personality with not being too overbearing and stealing too much limelight. So she's quite challenging. Yeah. I see her as a little like feather spring, the way that she sprungs everywhere. She's just boundless potential energy. Yes, Cleric of Sylvanus, uh, the wild nature, you could call it.
I take offense to this. I'm not a dull, boring cat. I'm dependable. I'm reliable. I just like if you want to call that dull and boring, that's up to you. uh, well, Argyle. Well, he's a Leonin. And specifically a Leonin of the Ember Eye Pride, and stating where he comes from and why it's important to him, it always enters his introduction. For some reason, he has this passion or a need to say his full name all the time, as much as possible, especially on new introductions. So, Dr. Argyll, Pyromane of the Ember Eye Pride, is a mouthful, but to him, it comes across as articulate, perhaps worthy of note. Proper, exactly. So, he's a smaller than average Leonin, not so strong as the standard cats would be, and therefore he was a shunned member of his pride as someone who couldn't really keep up with the bigger boys. So he decided to focus on the smarts, um, getting in contact with Saloon as a way of powering his abilities. So he's a druid, but in a very academic way. And druids, he is a wildfire druid. Yes, one of the newer ones from Tasha's. Yes, um, and he left his pride to seek further knowledge, enrolling in the Ludmire Sanctum, which is where this whole crazy journey kind of begins with Argyle and Clarissa, where this whole relationship boiled together in a big stew. Um, yeah, so that's where they ended up. And he has a wildfire companion by the name of Sparky, who is positive and upbeat and like exactly so the cheerleader. That he's kind of dim-witted. He's like a light source, a tool to Dr. Argyle, but at the same time, they're inseparable. I mean, a relationship would have to have started somewhere, especially when you're
Yeah.
pushed together in a
But
in the
I, I,
sanctum.
I I remember that we talked about, Adrian, that it was more positive at first, the relationship, and
Absolutely.
then they started getting on each other's nerves.
Well, I mean, I was always under the impression that Clarissa trying to do her very best in her own special way to
Wow.
become that druid, um,
Mm-hmm.
and Argyle also, pushing himself in his own special way, trying to prove to himself and to his pride that he's not just like a bit of dead weight.
Mm.
He can't like hunt in the plains like his pride can, but so he has something to prove as well. So when you put two competitive people together for completely different reasons, sparks are gonna fly in
Mhm.
some sort of way.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, To a certain degree, yeah. Well, there was the whole. Right. Well, I mean, I can go first if you like, because Argyle was first. It was going to be related to, the introduction of the party, since Argyle was their first port of call, told that there would be someone of particular expertise that the party could go to, and therefore they met Dr. Argyll in the crypts in the mortuary, doing what he does with experimentation and you know dissection. And when they first came in, um, I'm not sure that the party themselves were really expecting to be met with an NPC, a person. They're maybe expecting you to do it. Yeah. Hmm. Oh, I see. True, but there is still the reveal. Who's this
Oh, that's
person?
a mood. That's a mood.
That's a real mood. Just to get that shock, the reveal, either if you do it at the table, if you do it online, if you can, really capitalize as much as possible to do a proper reveal, um, it just pays off so much. And to a certain extent, the way that you set it up there, Dan, um, I think it already painted the NPC, Dr. Argyle, in a positive light because it was just so impressive to them. So it made it very easy for me to do whatever I wanted because they were already kind of shocked in a positive way. So meeting the party, Dr. Argyle was like looking over his glasses, his silver frame glasses, down his long leonine nose at this hodgepodge collective, like weird group of tabaxi and human or human looking. Mhm. Yeah, just like who the hell are you kind of thing. But at the same time, Dr. Argyle has an opportunity to introduce himself, which he loves doing. Um, and yeah, I think that was the impression I got from them was they don't know what they're doing. Yes, yes. Not me personally. Like I think the party themselves were very engaged. They wanted to understand and figure out the mystery behind the fungus happening. But yeah, the characters themselves, I think they were like shocked at the same time, um, and then not sure exactly what to do. Yeah, I can imagine. He's in comparison to Tabaxi, he's taller than them, and what being completely preened and groomed, and the fact that his fur is like a moving flame. uh, I mean, would you
Kind of
like
like a
it more
gnome,
like,
like Goliath.
or like a kobold and a dragon? You know, that's lizardist. But yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, so I wonder. I had always wondered like what their initial impression was of Dr. Argyle, of being this collected, put together kind of guy, knew what he was doing in life, doing it well, um, dressed well and like well spoken, versus adventurers kind of a little bit lost in the sea of what's going on. True. It's kind of hard to balance out that kind of character. You don't want it to come across like unapproachable because you're so in awe. So I thought I put in some weird quirks like he needs cleanliness, telling the party to wash their hands constantly, and no, I had no idea. Yeah. I'd like to think that they already had some sort of a thing just because he's been in that town longer than the party. So, yeah, I imagine Dr. Argyll being a little bit awkward when it comes to social engagements, being the studious man he is, not spending much time on social skills. Um, for sure, that was an interesting situation. Well, I was surprised myself. To be honest, the first time I played a wildfire druid, and I did not realize that doing the spells that Argyle did would do so much damage to do a critical and then just obliterate a treant, a corrupted treant. Yeah, it's not very often you tend to have a character at level 5 or 6 do near 100 damage in a single turn. So I think that mattered though. I think if I'm really honest, despite the crit, despite the nature of it, to have the party feel like the companion that they have along with them is not inept and has some sort of skill and it's not going to be just an escort quest kind of deal, and someone to aspire to and look up to and say, oh god damn, like this guy is, he knows what he's doing. And you know try to soften the blow with have everything go through Sparky, um give a little bit of a comedic edge, but just a small one. Yeah, I believe I did.
Hag. Hag is the word.
A witch, yeah. Well, yes, I think at that point, Argyle spoke to a tree, a bush, and that was awkward as well because she was a very amorous bush. Um,
Wow, I need to see this. I don't know this.
a very sensual bush. That
Wow, what is
instructed.
this timestamp? I need
It's
to know.
near the end of the session.
Okay. Why didn't you tell me of this? Like, wow.
It was just what I did not expect it. I was a little taken back. Um, it's like a bush
That
flirting with a Lena.
Wow.
But the bush said that there was something happening near the lumber yard, and then it kind of all culminated together where, yes, Argyle felt like he needed the expertise of another, you know, well educated, well trained scientist in a way. And the only one he could ever think about doing, which, rustled his feathers, got his back up, um, was Clarissa, and he hated the fact that he had to rely on her to continue the whole academic side of things. He, I guess, felt very um, small in that he couldn't do it himself, and it kind of harkened back to his ability, well, his inability as a Leonin to be told when he was a mere cub uh, that he couldn't do the strong boy things. So therein lied the hesitation and the uh, eclectic manner in the way that he described or introduced Clarissa. No, I think that's because he didn't want to come off as sounding inferior. Exactly so. So he tried to paint her in a poor light to begin with, to his own ego, so that the party wouldn't look at her and say, "Okay, she's better than him. I'm just gonna like dump you and go off with this crazy satire," because that's something that happened in his past, and he was adding a little bit of humanity, leonity to. Mm,
I feel called out. Okay. This abuse of microphones has to stop today, Danny. Okay, this is an intervention. Hmm. Yeah, Clarissa, considering her background growing up in a druidic combine, doesn't really feel that comfortable in cities. So it was a natural thing for her to camp out, not in the town. And she knew that Argo would be there, so she put herself on the front line because. Mhm,
mhm,
mhm.
mhm,
Well, Clarissa, when it comes to her opinion upon the party, to be completely frank, she didn't really have the time to form any opinions. Her mind races so fast, and the way that she sees the world is quite black and white. So when she saw the party, she just saw adventurers, and then that's all that they became in her mind. And then it was time to make friends with the cool adventurers because they're cool in her mind. I do think that if she wouldn't have become this um if she wouldn't have become the scientist in the Ludmire Sanctum, that adventuring could have been a path for her. Uh so they just became a blob where the title on top of them was just adventurers equals cool, and and that's how she treated them. Well, Yeah, well, yes, when I invited them to sit down and have tea, I did have some muffins. But they were very mild, well, very mild muffins. They were morning muffins, so just a pick up. Oh yeah, 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 brownies, yes. But I don't know if I have access to chocolate in this world, so maybe muffin is a bit more of a. Okay, okay, then totally brownies. Totally with like um this flour that is so coarse that you almost feel like you're biting down on like wood chips. Yeah. But she got really excited whenever somebody thought that she was cool because then, I mean, if the cool people think I'm cool, I must be cool too, right? So she really did her darnest to make them like her because she is very open and charismatic, but she's also a lot to handle, so she doesn't actually have that many friends. So at any opportunity of that, she just throws herself headlong into the opportunity to get cool friends. So she offered flowers and tea and magic drugs. Yeah.
Substance abuse is always the way.
uh yeah. Mm, mhm.
Yeah, I'm impressed that our involvement with the campaign and the party led to such theories talking
Yeah,
about NPCs.
pretty fun. Oh god. Mhm.
It's such a an
Yeah.
interesting sort of perspective to address, and I know it's in what people want to hear. Still a better love story than Twilight.
The Oh god. Mhm.
I mean, that's really cool. Not naming any names.
Mm,
Mhm. Well, I think, well,
uh, can I
yeah.
can I start with that? Well, so the underlying things with Clarissa is that Clarissa is heavily jealous of Argyle. She actually don't think that she has that much talent. She thinks that Argyle is way more suited to be like voice text star pupil. Um, that he is way better at what we do than she is, and she is incredibly jealous that he is a druid. Something that she wanted to be her whole life. So there's also, a lot of like secretly looking up to Argyle, uh, and admiring him, respecting him, but the jealousy blinds her to the point where it turns into like anger, and she doesn't really want to accept the thing that she actually thinks that he is more suitable. So she want to deny the whole thing, and that's why she treats him like, dirt, and like ignores him, and hmm
Fire kitty. I think, like Bexy says, it's a complicated nature here to distill down. And Bexy and I did discuss uh, the backstory together about
mm
where Argyle and Clarissa's relationship began, and obviously it began in um, the sanctum, because they each joined more or less the same time for completely different reasons, but
mm
with similar ambition. And
mm
the theory of one upping each other, always being like a first or second best in the class
mm
for completely different reasons, obviously pitted them together. They ended up on the whole being around each other more often, either from a devious perspective to see what the other person is doing.
mm
Um,
Psychological warfare.
yeah, just like having the one up on each other.
I hate myself.
Uh,
What?
I don't know
you're
how
not
long it.
recording,
No, I have been,
Okay,
but
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 on Streamlabs, my mic has been muted.
oh
um,
no.
I'm keeping it. Fuck it. I'm keeping it. We're gonna have
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
We're gonna have half a conversation until this point. This that is botched as fuck.
oh
Well, you
no.
can I think you can cut yourself out then. You can probably put yourself in, in Lightworks or any other place and just cut away the
Oh,
silent
for
part.
fuck me, man.
Or just like do a dubbing and just like
No, I'm gonna
re-call you.
no, I'm gonna keep it because people need to see the stupidity of me.
Okay.
I can't
Okay.
believe I literally, because cat's fucking about on my desk and it's made me look at the monitor I've got Streamlabs on, and I'm like, wait, I can see your bars moving when you talk, but where's my?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, oh no.
Can't believe you've done this.
I'm glad you guys have been talking the most because otherwise that would have been bad.
Well, live and learn.
Anyway, continue, please. I'm gonna sit here and feel
Uh,
stupid.
where was I? The
Yeah. Psychological warfare.
Yes, of between Argo and Clarissa, and I think that in general, like even in the real world, that sort of constant interaction with each other, constant in the back of their minds, say like, "Hey, what's Clarissa doing? What's Argyle doing?"
Mm-hmm.
You can't help but get closer, even if you feel it's not a romantic closeness just by proximity, just because you're always thinking about that person. There is something to be said about involving each other in each other's lives.
It's a
And
familiarity.
yeah, familiarity, exactly. And for Argyle, he looked at Clarissa as a threat. Um, to begin with, like he was cordial and polite as he always is when they first started, but as Clarissa, I would imagine, took advantage of certain times, very small times, to say, okay, like introduce her personality to get a one-up edge, he would look at her and say, "Well, I don't have that kind of um, bubbly personality and extrovertedness." And maybe that's what he's missing. Maybe if he was more extroverted, just
Yeah.
like Clarissa, that he would have gotten further in life, and not have to struggle and not have to prove himself and not have this, lack of self-confidence, which clearly Clarissa seemed to have, even if she didn't. It's just mimicking it is enough. So he also looked at Clarissa with some sort of jealousy, and this parallel jealousy between one another is that is basically how their relationship kind of came together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As
Yeah.
for getting closer and knowing each other more intimately, um, Bexy, do you have anything
Uh,
to say on this?
no, I definitely agree. I think that they have been moving closer, in subconsciously of how they think about each other from the rivalry, and it's very much like on the surface, it's very negative, but beyond all of those layers is this jealousy, this respect, and this admiration.
Yeah.
And I think that they both moved past a little bit of that being in that very stressful session
Mm-hmm.
where they got to explore some of those
Yeah.
topics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when really confronted with what really matters. From a
Hmm.
character perspective, if you're in a safe environment, in the environment that you have cultivated,
Mm-hmm.
such as either in a tent in the woods or in a morgue
Yeah.
lab, you know, they are very independent. They're the characters in their own environment of which they have learned to thrive in. But when it comes down to taking them both out of that environment, they really focus on what really matters.
Yeah,
And
and that they only have each other at that moment to trust and lean on. Uh,
Hell yeah. But before we get to that bit, though, let's quick. We'll summarize because again, a lot of it was combat, so we won't blame on that too much. But the bits in between were interesting because, like I said, I wanted to bring that up first because I know if I didn't, I would be crucified by the players.
well,
Because
Cass
mhm.
had a pretty big involvement in
yeah,
the set during the sessions.
yeah,
Speaking to
I'm aware.
Argyle, and
Oh
to a
yeah,
certain
how
degree,
did that change Argyll's opinion on his own feelings?
I
That's a
think it
good
was
point, actually.
this
Yeah.
the party's involvement into their relationship was an interesting um, idea for them to do. I never expected them to care that much about NPC relationships. Clearly, they saw something, like just like schoolyard playing, pulling the pigtails of girls. Is that like, does that mean you like them kind of thing?
Yeah.
And maybe that's where Cass
That was
got
what
it.
Cass was heavily implying on. Yeah.
Hmm. And on the walk into the forest to try and identify where the mushrooms are coming from, there was that conversation where Cass gave that perspective. And to be honest, Dr. Argyll never really thought of things that way. He just looked at things at a very surface level, like there is pure logic behind it, it doesn't make any sense, like she has no fur on her face, what the hell?
And bugs in her hair.
And bugs in her hair, yeah. But yeah, I would say that the party, especially Cass, gave that seed of doubt or curiosity to Argyle at
Mm.
that point in time, and
Okay.
it made him think differently, at least question how he's been thinking.
Yeah.
If the party hadn't come along, it's perhaps their relationship would never have changed.
Yeah. And and during this time, Clarissa kneed Evan in the mummy and daddy bits by falling from a cave roof.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
That was funny as shit. Bless him. And yeah, you guys are fleeing south because when you guys were at Clarissa's camp, the rune warding was broken, and combat with large fungal-ridden remoras was definitely interesting. And that conversation that you've just touched on happened just after that. And
No matter how much Clarissa has warmed up to Argyll, she is still very salty about her death.
yeah, but the thing is, Cass is the only one that knows the truth about who broke that warding, and she hasn't said anything because
I know
it was Argyle and his nervousness, a slip of the claw. Shit happened.
I'm
Was it
saying
really
that
a
a
slip of the
slap is
claw, though?
coming.
This is what I'm thinking.
Oh, well that
Oh,
well that
oh, really? Huh?
well that is for Argyle's interpretation.
I was always thinking that that may have happened because they always that jealousy, like them both being out their first assignments, each trying to one up each other still. That maybe he saw the encampment of Clarissa and seeing that she's doing some solid work here, gets that jealousy, and maybe I'll just do a little sabotage here so I can get the better
Yeah,
of her.
and because of that, Gustav and Tent Chan was destroyed.
Yeah.
Stuff.
And Tent Chan, don't forget Tent Chan.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'd stumbled into this cave, and this turned out to be a lot more than just a cave. You'd found an underground wizard's tower, laboratory, and a king, no doubt.
I will just point out about our forage into that cave. Clarissa was so excited and so happy that she was able to pacify all those bats.
Yeah.
Oh my god. It was such a highlight for her to be that badass. Yeah. Yeah,
What
yeah.
to stop about 20 bats being angry?
Yeah, yeah. That was a highlight for her.
Okay, I can. Okay. But yeah, you
I
made
think
your.
before that, there was like a moment where maybe the party themselves maybe added fuel to this fire of like what kind of relationship do these two characters have as
Oh, I know what you're gonna say. Yeah.
they both did a collective plant growth and Argyle referenced something that they
Yes.
had performed in the past.
Yes.
So really adding on to that to the layers of like what the hell's going on between these two people, were they friendly beforehand? And,
Yeah.
I think we did it in a pretty great way that way. Into
I
a
will,
collective plant growth cocoon.
yes. I will also point out during that evening where Clarissa brought up the evening brownies that it really showed how little experience Dunster had with drugs.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
He's a
I
little...
was sitting there and thinking to myself, this is not how this works, but okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't blame Dancer for not knowing how drugs work. I mean,
If anything, that's surely a good thing.
No. It's an observation rather than a critique.
Okay.
Setting the record that it's not what happened.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.
yes,
An
you did the bat thing.
avocado. Thanks.
Yeah. But you'd found a king as well, Bex. I'm surprised that wasn't the highlight, honestly.
I mean, he started talking with other people than just Clarissa, and so it wasn't wholly her achievement, that thing. So she, that point, she, treated the thing like she treats everything. She is very militantly vegan and, caring about nature and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It might be rooted into that she really wants to be a druid and maybe it's not completely full-hearted. But for her, that was just every day. She talks to plants and mushrooms and trees quite often in her life, so it wasn't that strange for her.
But yeah, you found your way into this cave, you'd pacified some bats, discovered an illusionary wall, went through some trials and found this underground laboratory. Found this large myconid, shackled and the victim of experimentation, and a arcanist who was performing the experiments, who was very quickly subdued, interrogated, and mildly tortured. For reasons. The myconid was set free as well, after defeating the defense matrices of the facility. The party wanted to bring Deeproot, as his name was, as well as the arrested wizard, to town to receive justice and obviously tell the tale of what had happened. But because it was still daylight at the time, Deeproot couldn't go, because of sunlight sensitivity. The offer was to have you two babysit Deeproot till nightfall, bring him to a place close to town where he could rest when daylight comes, and the party were going to take the wizard to the town to basically take him to the guardhouse. We found your problem because it became apparent, and through admission, that the fungus problem was in part due to this facility and the people of it. But yeah, you guys didn't make it home, did you?
Yeah, it was a very touching scene.
Yeah.
Where Argyll just gave Clarissa his staff and said, "What? Get to the others, tell them what's happened." Or...
Yeah, because Deeproot was the only one that was spotted at the time, and you both had the chance to run together and get away, but you chose to take the hero's route and try and fight.
It was a half. Clarissa wanted to be a hero, and half that she didn't want Argyll to do that.
Well, yeah, because Argyll went first, and then it was kind of like, no, you're not going to upstage me, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was what I got, because the way I saw that scene was Argyll was doing the nice touching thing of, go, I'll protect you sort of thing, and then Clarissa's like, no, motherfucker, you ain't upstaging me, I'm coming with you. Fuck you.
Yeah.
That was how I saw it.
If she would have had initiative in that moment, if you could say like that, she had higher initiative, I think she would have done the exact same thing to Argyll. But since Adrian was quicker to respond to that, her answer was still genuine, but there was also a lot of you can't be better than me.
Yeah.
There's something to be said there as well about how the interaction between the two ended up. Yeah, okay, initiative happened and Argyll was quicker, but at the same time, but if they were on that same wavelength, that they've always been on that same wavelength, it kind of harkens back to the fact that they've been trained in the same area, they have the same sort of ideals, albeit coming from two different walks of life. And the fact that Clarissa chose, in some level, to not be upstaged, but also to not leave Argyll alone, that does have some sort of impact in terms of what is their actual relationship, where they have that respect for each other. They know that whilst they don't necessarily like the way that they do things, in a way of jealousy or I don't know, as a threat, they know they can rely on each other.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anyone, that is as reliable as you, it's your nemesis, right? It's your rival.
Makes sense. But yeah, this female arcanist had very quickly killed Deeproot, subdued both of you, and you two were captured, and that was the last interaction you had in the campaign until the session that was just for you two, which was interesting. You guys have been captured, you had been remained perpetually blindfolded. You were bound but not gagged, and you were kept in tiny confounds, with the exception of minor portions of the day where you were fed, watered, and other experiments and rituals were performed on you. You had not seen or heard each other, and yeah, given the back and forth you guys had had, and maybe some embers that were stoked by or made by party members, it kind of fucked you guys over a little bit mentally. That not being able to see each other and, like, you know, that kind of lack of social interaction. With the exception of the two people that you regularly saw, which was an Arcanist and a guard.
I'm not entirely sure if the fact that Argyll not being able to see Clarissa was a source of, you know, psychological warfare. Obviously, he had concerns. They had the last thing that they experienced was that they were subdued by this faction. But I think when the interrogator, I forget his name.
He never gave a name.
Yeah, let's call him the interrogator. Mentioned that Clarissa was still alive. That, you know, up until that point, Argyll had been like stoic and brave, and like, I don't know who you are. Like, I'm not giving you any information because it could mean the downfall of something. Because why would you kidnap someone? But I think that kind of information, giving someone a glimpse of hope in an otherwise despair situation, I think that's kind of what broke him.
Yeah.
And then he went back and was left alone for like weeks on end, with no food or water, and he took a very different psychological turn than what Clarissa experienced.
Yeah, because while you were both being subjected to very similar, or in some cases the same trauma, like, yeah, you two had different reactions to it, which was quite interesting to see, because like when the interrogator tried to get information, Argyll was stoic and reluctant, but then with the right presses eventually just kind of just gave the answers more. I think it was more for like a, will you shut the fuck up now, here you go, I'll tell you what you want. Whereas Clarissa was kind of like, it was just kind of like
comment.
It was just kind of like,
comment
fuck you, yeah, like, fuck off.
Where Rose went interrogating the interrogator. Love it.
Yeah, like you were not taking any shit. You were giving this guy a fucking time.
Well, I mean, to also go back to the earlier question, there for Clarissa, the with her burning curiosity, not knowing what happened to Argyll, be it dead or alive, kind of tortured her more than when the answer came. When the answer came, then it was like, oh, now I have a goal. But before then, she didn't know what to do and how to react. And with the interrogator, considering how incredibly compassionate upbringing she has had, Druidic Combine and communists, all of them, and vegans and all of that.
Lovey-dovey people, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Living in harmony with each other and with nature, where these things are unspeakable. And she, growing up there and being at the sanctum, seeing this disease for sure, but it's just nature, but experiencing people doing this to other people was unfathomable in her mind. So she was angry, but she was also dumbstruck, like questioning him, like, wait, how? I don't understand how your mind works. How can you do this and not feel anything? And so she constantly tried to like prod his buttons to see if he ever gave her some kind of emotion, because she needed to know how this evil could exist.
It was more trying to understand how people like this, how can you become like this and like think that's okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's why she steered away from the questions that he asked because she thought them to be um not important. The priority should be here is to question like how is this even allowed? How are you even stomaching this? That's what's more important in her mind than like actually going through with the process of it.
yeah. Hmm. That's
But
interesting.
the isolation, the lack of stimulation, and conversation, that's when it really started to break her down mentally when she started singing to herself, started like rehearsing um like passages from scientific books to herself and things like that
Mm-hmm.
because there was just so much energy in her body and nothing to do with it. And I think at that point she had started to give in a little bit to these people because she couldn't handle it.
Yeah, but yeah, but you guys had your moments. It was after I think two. It was either 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember what I said in session, but I'm sure people will correct me.
Three.
3. Thank you. Um, yeah, you guys saw each other. Like this is a great moment. Like
Ha, ha. A great
Mhm.
moment. That was an interesting. So let's just talk a little bit about the way that both of our
Mhm.
characters experienced isolation,
okay.
based on what happened
Yeah.
before. About
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that kind of really like introduces the scene of when they got reintroduced to each other.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Go for it.
So Argyle, with the glimmer of hope that someone, Clarissa still lives, he kind of broke down his rationalization and his logic, and when there's nothing else to fall back on, when there's no other answers, you imagine a smart person might retreat into themselves, and their truly primal nature comes out. And being a Leonin, and uh, he kind of went back to the Emberi pride.
Yeah.
His earlier days of being animalistic and really um, uh, using his lion side to achieve what he needs to achieve. So he also started talking to Sparky, who wasn't there,
Yes.
and I thought that was a really creepy thing. I mean, I don't know exactly why I
Oh,
came
it
up with
was
it.
creepy.
Yeah, to have a smart person talk to someone who's not there, I was like, at the spur of the moment, I didn't plan it. It just came out, and I was like, oh my God, I can't imagine being this kind of person and enduring this kind of fall. So when the interrogator came back in and said, "Okay, we're going to take you to another room," he referred and Argyle referred to him as Sparky, like not making
Yeah.
any ability or any couldn't tell the difference between who was talking to him, and he referred to him as Sparky.
Yeah.
Uh, that to me was just like such a tragedy. Someone who is retreated so far into themselves only is more primal and savage, but at the same time confused and unable to see very clearly because without his glasses.
Hmm.
And point of note here for the party, which we didn't touch on, his spectacles are actual spectacles of intellect,
Oh.
and yeah, so his intelligence level fell quite a bit when
Oh
they took them from him.
Oh no. You become dumb.
Well, not necessarily dumb. He's still a smart guy, but not as smart as what Clarissa had thought of. So I was trying to
Yeah.
think, okay, if he's not smart as much as he's used to, um, there is this sort of, uh, I guess, jumping to conclusions happens a lot quicker or a lot more often, and they may not be exactly the right way to jump to, or the right conclusion to jump to. But therein lies the reason why he chose to speak to Sparky, who's not there, and retreat into a less smart location in his brain.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
when he was taken out of that cell and put into the cell with Clarissa, he had a completely different demeanor, and Yeah, I'll just hand it over to Lexi now to explain her side.
Um, yeah, well, Clarissa got this goal when she learned that Argyll was alive, because since she considers him to be better than her, um, she thought to herself like, okay, if there's any way to like redeem myself in my life to lift myself up from how pathetic that I view myself to be, then it would be to make sure that Argyle is okay and gets out of here and actually do
Yeah.
something with his life. But then in the same time, the torture, the mental torture for her to not be stimulated for such a long time, um, also eroded at her confidence, or I should actually say like her will to live.
Yeah.
Um, she uh she was so desperate for going back to normalcy and having any kind of interaction with anybody that she asked the dude, like, how was your day? What did you do today? Like, give me something to think about during these long hours
Yeah.
that I will be alone. Let me repeat this conversation in my head an X number of times before it's ruined for me, so I have something to do with my brain when you leave me alone. If he would have asked her to like dance for me, she would have definitely done it just to have something to think about and do and focus her attention on. So when she saw Argyle, well, first of all, let me say that that silence spell was like pure nightmare fuel for her,
Mm.
because it was the opposite of what she needed. Um,
It was more done. I mean, it was kind of perfect how that happened. It was more done so you couldn't hear him repeat the conversation to Argyle. That was the thing. So like he wasn't aware he was there. But yeah, like when you mention it, it's like, oh god, yeah, that would have been like fucking horrific in its own.
yeah. So, she came out of that, which was mental torture for her of the highest degree to be starving of stimulation and conversation and then be put into a silence spell. So that's her mindset coming out of that.
Yeah.
uh, so yeah, as soon as she saw Argyle hearing this very ludicrous statement, which didn't make sense to her, like on any point, like logical point, like why would they release any of us really? If we're just gonna,
Mm.
tell somebody what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Um, but seeing that there might be some hope that Argyle could make it out, she laughed hysterically at the ridiculousness of the situation,
Mhm.
and then was willing to give up her own life
Yeah, because
for Argyle
just for
to
a bit of
end.
timeline synchronization in terms of the main campaign, this happened like 2 days or maybe even less um after Cass sending for the second time to Argyle,
Mhm.
where there was a detection and an attachment to her sending spell, which basically looked like a wiretap almost, and
Mm.
people became aware that their areas were being probed because of you two, and
Mhm.
that was the reason why you guys experienced this situation was mostly through that.
Ah, well.
Otherwise, you would have probably have been
Thanks,
continued to
guys.
have been starved of. Otherwise, the lack of exposure to anything would have just continued, and you would have been left in isolationism.
Jesus, what
Mhm.
would that do to? Okay, well, I
Yeah,
might find out with my character, but that's jumping into the future.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, no, she was ready. She was giving up mentally. Saying that Argyle is better than her, and she just wanted all of this to end. The answer to the riddle became very clear in her mind, and she wasn't strong enough to do it herself, but she offered no resistance.
You were both And just for clarification of the ludicrous request that you're referring to, it was one of you had the chance to go free, and you would be able to go to anywhere in the world you wanted, on premise that only one of you can go, and it'd be through the other's mean. So one of you had to kill the other. A weapon was provided, as well as some food and water for those that needed it, because you had been a little while.
I think there was a comment there, like out of character, when I just said I don't need the dagger. I've got my claws. That
Yeah.
kind of really.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Yeah,
true.
that was
That
I mean,
Emma.
it's true though. It is true. I think that your claws do the same damage as the dagger does. You know.
I think it was more of a question of him choosing the primal path, and like, if I wanted to be true to where his psychological state was, he wouldn't use a tool. And the fact that Clarissa just endured this. So I listened back to the VOD
Yeah.
after we had this session, and I apologized to Bexy
What?
Really?
What? What?
because it was just so traumatizing to hear my descriptions of things. I didn't realize at the time, like, the way I was describing something, like I was afraid of what I was saying when I was listening to it.
Was this before?
I
Or after you asked her to get in your mouth?
No, this is before, like when
Yeah.
it was more like they were on opposite ends of the room.
Yeah, and you started saying like stalking, go down on all fours,
Well, like
seeing
his
what I would do.
the flames in his mains turn
Yeah.
crimson red, turning the inside of the room to be like a blood colored and stuff like
What's
that.
that smell, Sparky?
Oh yeah, and talking to oh my god, yeah, that
Yeah.
was so bad.
No, don't apologize.
It was
Such a
innate. It
great
was
moment.
innately unsettling. But I think that because it wasn't done just because it was done for many reasons. It was quite perfect. Yeah.
On the other hand, I got scared that my little performance with Clarissa just giving up her life to you was like overshined by your description.
I think
That's what I got scared over.
I think depending on the type of person you are, you're gonna pick out one of the two over the other. But I think that's just depending on the person, really. But it was definitely interesting, and yeah, like I haven't watched it back myself at all.
Oh, you should.
Yeah.
Just like I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's the tension, the stress. It was stress inducing. It's like to imagine yourself being there, trapped in a room where you have this lion that had lost his mind, talking to something that's not there. The third person of like, is this the food that I was promised, Sparky? Yeah. It smells good, things like that. I mean, to be talking about Clarissa as not a satyr or, a person, but more meat. I think that really kind of drove. I mean, if it needed to be driven home any further, that really like did so, and the way that it turned out was based on roles, I suppose.
Yeah, it was a little bit
Argyll.
on roles. Because I gave Argyll the chance to, because of how Clarissa, between your moments, Clarissa was giving enough of an outburst where
there's a minimum amount of effort that is required to kill me.
Yeah, but it was that frustration of, from Clarissa, at least this is how I saw it. I'm giving you a chance here. Stop fucking about. You fucking it up. And it was those moments.
Toying with my life. It was also that.
It was those moments that I gave Argyll like roles a disadvantage given all of it, to at least try and pick up on. No, this isn't quite what he's seeming and stuff.
Well, it's also a question of like when you put us in initiative at that point, purely from a purpose of
I did it because I didn't know if you were gonna. I didn't know how you guys were gonna react, so I wanted to put you in initiative in case you guys did try combat, or if you guys tried the talk, or if it was a case of I didn't know how. There was so many ways it could have gone. That's why I wanted to put it in initiative, so it was a bit more controlled.
No, that's fair enough. But we didn't take to the initiative in like an immediate. We see initiative, therefore combat. We did take each turns and did things according to initiative rolls, which was fine. It was a fine interaction. But
Yeah.
there was this point in time when like Clarissa was at the mercy of Argyle, and her personality came through, and I like to think that when she called him a dumb, boring cat, um,
Hmm.
like when he was like looming over her, that's kind of what echoed through his brain. You know, like he regressed back just because of those words, and like he found a piece of sanity within the cloudy nature of his brain, and that's what brought him back out of the savage nature. So in the end, Clarissa's well choice to insult Argyle is what saved her in the end.
God damn it.
Oh God.
You know, not the important monologuing, not the deep feelings. Just, oh yeah, she insulted me.
Well, it's more like the word. It was the words. It was the
Yeah, yeah.
fact
No,
that
no, I
you
know, I
know.
know, I know. But no, like, yeah, and then you asked her to get in your mouth.
Well, yeah, I was trying to
Yeah.
think about how to get it.
Like
It was
literally,
more of
I just
a thing.
remember the entire chat, me, everyone just kind of froze for a minute and just like, wait,
Wait, what?
what? Say that again?
Get my mouth. Do
I'm
you want to live?
so sad my microphone clipped. Because Clarissa made this really like Joker-esque laugh of hysteria at that point.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, like this
Mm.
is not the time for that type of content. No.
Well, I was trying to think at that point, like, if he had just come out of the cloudy nature of his mind and he, like, had the briefest of moments to reorder things in his brain. And, you know, he's, like I said, he's not a dumb guy. He's just less smart without his glasses. And he tried to summon Sparky at that point, but he was also thinking that he was being watched. There was no guarantee that they were alone. So he wanted to make it look like he was mauling Clarissa before putting into action this very hastily thought out escape plan.
Mm.
And things might have gone a lot different if the role failed to bring out Sparky, but because it did, with the words of Clarissa still echoing in his fuzzy ears, that's how he thought, well, if I can make it look like I'm killing Clarissa at the same time as taking her out with the fiery teleport that Sparky has.
Mm-hmm.
That was his thinking, and so I was like, I don't know. It came out really strange, like get in my mouth. It's such a strange phrase to tell anyone.
You're only realizing this now.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, Clarissa lying there on the floor, having a dagger pointed at her chest, a big
Lion Man on
lion
top of her.
maw in her
Mhm.
face, and she has resigned herself to this gory death. And then get in my mouth.
Like, I'm not gonna
That was
like
a
chew
that was
for
a
you.
challenge. That was a challenge for me as a role player of like racking my brain. I was like, how am I supposed to react to this moment?
Yeah. But it was interesting. And
It certainly went one way. So yeah, getting out of that cell, and then like obviously
That
we went
crazy,
running through
crazy
the
chase
run.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
you
like
heard
the
shouts for get number 8. He needed to know that this breakout was happening, as they didn't expect that to happen. And
Mhm.
number 8 did, because you essentially he was in there was 2 sets of people storage. He'd gone to the other one to do work, leaving you guys to do the dirty work. And you literally ran past his door as you saw where he came out, because he was siphoning other people while you guys were meant to be tearing ribbons out of each other. Instead, you were immolating guards with fire teleports.
Yeah, well, I mean, at that point, Clarissa was having a bit of a time uh, getting used to being held like a cub in his mouth,
Mm-hmm.
and just like running and shooting and such. And she was still manacled at that point in time.
Yep, she was.
So it was,
Yeah,
I,
she actually at that point she didn't believe that they could do it. That's why she like tried to talk to him, like saying like, are we actually going to do this? Like, you had a shot of getting out of here. Like, are we really going to run? I don't think this is going to work. Just kill me.
mm.
But you just barreled on ahead.
Well, there was a couple of things going through his mind at that point. Like, I think the fact that you insulted him early on, it was like the real spark he needed. And it sounds silly to say, okay, well, insults. It was a funny sort of line, but at the same time, it
Mhm.
meant everything to him to feel that hope once more,
Mm.
to see
Mm.
you. And when, hope is a hell of a drug. If you think brownies are, uh,
Very true, very true.
so getting out was just everything that he thought he could try and do and ensure that this person who unknowingly brought him back to logical consciousness, if that's the word, um, that deserved to be rewarded in a sense of forgiveness of jealousy or any sort of threat. Like this is a different person. I owe everything to this person who I now carry in my mouth, and I'm going to make sure that they are safe. So it's such a different experience to have like
Oh
one
wait, so that
character.
explains it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Your will to make sure the person in your mouth was safe. She got out your mouth. That's what happened. That's the problem. I found it. There we go.
Yeah,
Because
she did get out.
yeah, that was the problem. But yeah, because 8 was hot on your tail and did a couple of counter spells blocking you. You guys had ran pretty much because the facility was a big loop, and you guys. Argyll, you would have seen it because, well, Adrian, you would have seen it because of watching the VOD. It was one big loop, and you guys ran the long
Yeah,
way around. And,
I mean, toss a coin.
yeah, no, it is
yeah.
true.
We didn't know
No.
which way to go, so it was just that was the direction that there wasn't someone. Obviously, Sparky immolated and like conflagrated the actual guy that our guard
Yeah.
that gives us food just out of spite. But yeah. Getting around to that smaller entrance and then essentially being confronted with this door.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Sparky being left behind, and we had to like hold off until Sparky got there to teleport past.
Yeah, because it
That
was
was a bit
locked.
of a
Yeah.
tension moment.
But
And then of course the end happened.
yeah, because
Yeah.
you'd found the weird floating crystal. Argyll, you'd kind of through a bit of fiddling and touching, had figured out that it wanted a location, and you uttered a location, and yeah, you were whisked away. You were safe. Clarissa.
Yeah, to him he was like, "We're doing this together. Like, you'll
Yeah.
be right behind me. I know you'll be right
Mm-hmm.
behind me. Like, I've saved the person that saved me, and therefore we will be friends after this is all over.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all he had to do was touch that crystal and follow me right after, and everything would be fine. And
Mm,
then, of course, it didn't happen.
yeah, I had
No.
literally, I was
There.
bang on the maximum movement number 8 could do. Open the door, cast his most powerful spell because one had already gone. He wasn't gonna let the other one go easily. Cone of Cold.
Oh, that was such a tragic roll, but I loved it at the end. Like,
I
you,
have a.
I was 5. I think I was 5 points over your HP.
Yeah, I think I had like.
You had like 34 and I rolled like 39.
Yeah. But I have a very sad confession to make.
What?
Uh, that Clarissa, as a clerk of nature, has dampened the elements,
Meaning,
which meaning that
Could have
as
taken
a
half
reaction,
damage.
she can take half damage from elemental sources of damage.
when did you figure that out?
Like half an hour after the session ended. Yeah. And but I think it ended better this way, like from a story standpoint. And from an immersive standpoint, I think she wasn't prepared or mentally um like you could say she was too exhausted to use that her ability of hers.
Oh no.
But if I would have read my character sheet this is for everybody listening out there. Read your character sheet carefully. Might save you from the con of cold.
I think you're right. It worked out better. I mean, to have a happy ending, I mean, it's all nice and all, but
Mm-hmm.
to have continued conflict and then that scene where Argyle is just waiting, expecting you to just appear and he will catch
Oh, it
you
was
in his
fucking
arms and everything will be
heartbreaking.
better. Yeah, and then you never came
Yeah.
through.
And then when Wojciech come past the door,
Mm,
fuck me, that
Yeah.
scene was horrific.
Yeah. Yeah. And for Clarissa, um, she felt that she could get over the jealousy now because it shouldn't matter or overshine the positive feelings that she has towards uh Argyle. It shouldn't matter. That's what she realized through the prison time. So she would have also gotten over her jealousy, thinking that it's just a stupid thing to put attention upon. And she was starting to come to terms with her own weakness. And so, if if it would have ended happily, who knows? But here we are.
Can't believe you could have lived.
yeah,
Yeah.
but doesn't it make it much more cinematic this way?
Oh, I know,
Uh,
but it's like, oh,
Yeah, it's extra heartbreaking in a way.
Absolutely. But also at the end, like for Argyle to then resolve to himself that he has to go back. Now hearing the way that his thinking was and his newfound need to ensure Clarissa's safety. I mean, that's everything to him now. It's not about proving to Wojciech like he is the stronger or smarter or the better.
mm-hmm.
It completely flipped on its head now with reality becoming more of a priority than academia. And what that means for him is completely different than everything he's learned up until that point. And it's something to be said about learning things in a silo and just assuming that everything is
Hmm.
the same because you've learned everything in that silo versus experiencing it.
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
and how much richer of a person you become by experiencing things instead of just book learning.
It's interesting now.
Very true.
But because obviously that's caught up in terms of what's happened on screen, and yeah, it's fucking interesting. Hopefully, the players are happy with some of the argument settling questions answered. Even though
Well, I don't think we haven't really answered the
no,
questions
no,
that
I
they're
was going to say
wanting to.
Yeah, we
even
kind of
e-
danced
e-
around it in a
e-
bit.
even though I was going to say the answers are a bit inconclusive. I think that in itself is an answer. I think
Yeah,
that in itself is an answer of it can kind of go either way.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't never
Although you haven't
certain.
specifically gone yes or no, maybe is kind of like both are on the table.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's always the case. One thing we could say for certain, I suppose. I don't know if Exy agrees with me, is that um, they mean a lot to each other, one
yeah,
way or another.
yeah. That's very true. From the
Oh.
years.
Well, don't worry. I'm sure you will meet again very soon.
And I will now have like the homework of thinking of how Clarissa's mind breaks even further. Woo!
Woohoo! In a silence perpetual
Oh
silence field.
no. Jesus. Oh God. Bit scary to think about.
Yeah.
Um, but
But
it was
yeah.
a great experience in terms
Mhm.
of coming together with Bexy and coming up with this plan together of this rivalry, this joint
Yeah.
background, and then being thrust into the spotlight in
Mm.
very different ways and learning to get along with each other. Even though at that point, I mean, it was such a wonderful story to endure and go through with this levels of emotion, um, where
Mm.
Argyle introduced Clarissa as like this witch and like she like brace
Mhm.
yourselves, you'd hate her, and then sort of
Yeah.
really like laying it on thick. And at the end of it, if
Yeah.
you look at it, two different ends of the string, uh, saying that we'll be friends and just we'll be together.
Mhm.
It's what a ride.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said,
Overcoming.
you guys' stories are definitely not over. It's just I know the party wanted to hear some of your like player thoughts of different situations and things and goings on, and like how you guys saw like different parts of the episode you were in.
Mhm. Hope they're happy.
And but they better fucking be, otherwise.
And I definitely hope Rose is happy.
I don't know if they're gonna be happy. I think it'd be like, but you didn't say it. You didn't
No.
say one way or another. I need closure. Damn it.
Yeah, well,
Well,
that's what
you
I'm.
better
That's what
go
I'm
and rescue
predicting.
Clarissa for that.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. Got to go find Argyle, and maybe he'll go find you.
Well, they are aware Argyle's out and about.
Well, if that's the case, then he's his whole motivation to not completely different is, I don't care about mushrooms anymore. I need to rescue the satyr who saved him from his own mind.
Yeah.
Trying
Hell yeah.
to disown you.
But yeah, I'm gonna unless you two want to discuss anything else specifically, I think we've covered pretty much everything. At least everything, because we've gone through the 3 sessions where there was involvement from you two and the bonus session. So we've talked 4 sessions. We've talked about a bit of background of the two of you, which I'm yet to do with the party. I really need to do an episode where we just talk about them, like rather than shit that's going on.
Unless you have any further questions about, story or questions from the party, short of just like, hey, you guys fucking.
I'm, I'm sure the main question that they demanded of me ask was, "Are you two DTF each other?"
That was it. I mean,
That
we are
literally
more than
was.
just meat.
Yeah.
No, I mean like the episode that I mentioned that's coming out this Wednesday. Literally the first, it was the first entire 20 minutes, and like the part, like literally they were going off on each other. It was brutal.
I feel like an NPC in a video game that you like.
No, that's
Shit.
literally what it. That's literally what it is. It's what it
Where you
is.
make sure that they talk an X number of times and give each other gifts.
You know what the big question would be? If
Hmm.
you two wasn't NPCs that came together as like a duo, would they still think it? Ah.
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, maybe.
Yeah,
It just
see?
comes across as, well, Bexy and I have a really great back and forth. We kind of play well together.
Yeah.
So in some instances, the way that we talk, even when it got to be a little bit silly in that chase scene where we had a lot of innuendos flying around.
Yeah.
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 At the end of it,
I
it's
have
like,
to apologize for my breakdown. I'm very sorry I broke face, but damn.
yeah.
Sorry.
It's
So
fine.
I think that, yeah, because we came together, that it added an extra layer by default.
Mm.
We had 2 different characters, but we had a goal together, and yeah, it was a good experience. I hope that the next NPCs that you bring on have the same sort of, a level of emotional depth, if possible, because that really is what brings NPCs to life.
Yeah, well, we'll see, because there may or may not be one on the near horizon, just saying, but shh.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Dun, dun,
I've just,
dun.
if this has been a successful test for you, being the first NPCs on your show,
Yeah.
then I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to try and do it again.
The main
but,
thing for me is just not overdoing it, not putting too many in too quickly, because I don't want it to lose its. It's a new person. Oh hi.
I would also
Of course.
say that when you have people that speaks rather than NPCs that the GM speaks as, there's a a thing that happens that a lot of limelight is put onto this new person,
Yeah.
in comparison to if it were an NPC that you were controlling. So it's also a balance of not removing gusto and the limelight to on your players.
Yes.
I think.
No, I get that. But yeah, so I'm going to end the episode here. So this would have come out on the Wednesday, so look out for next Wednesday, possibly, for the next episode. Unless we're fully caught up, then I believe we'll be going to bi-weekly. Because once we've caught up on the Talking the Tales, we're going to do like a 5-10 minute talk on each episode then. Like other D&D shows on like YouTube and shit do. Because it's cool. So yeah, thank you, both of you, for coming by and fulfilling the demands of the party to have your talks. And I will definitely be... I'm going to be feeding you guys information anyway, because, you know, I think it's interesting, like, okay, this situation's happened. What do? Just because I like giving you guys the still autonomy, even if you're not necessarily there playing. But yeah, we'll see. So yeah, I will see you guys next time.
Alright,
Bye.
take care. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.